So Jim Ratcliffe's 27.7%, not 25%, takeover of Manchester United is now official, and he's given his first interview, and it's not with who you think. I'm going to run through an interview that's kind of gone under the radar that he did with a Belgian business newspaper on Wednesday evening. Well, maybe not on Wednesday evening, but it was released on Wednesday evening, where he speaks about the world-class structure at Manchester United, what was missing, and the plan that he believes in. I think you're going to enjoy this video. Let's run through the first words from Jim Ratcliffe as Manchester United's single majority shareholder, by the way. No one holds more shares than him, even though the Glazers do have the majority. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's dive straight into it. And this first little snippet, I think, is quite an interesting point to start. Ratcliffe there saying, look, it's more fun to answer questions about sports. He's obviously there to talk about business. And maybe this is because I want to see this and I want this to be true. Maybe look, everyone's got their interpretations on how they see things. But I think Ratcliffe is really enjoying what is happening right now. Obviously, Ineos went to Nice, and they saw Nice as an investment project. They saw Nice as maybe something that they could flip. Maybe something over a 4 or 5 year period they could buy for X and then sell for 30% profit. Brilliant. Manchester United, he's never used that rhetoric or language. Manchester United is his boyhood club. It could well have been Chelsea, all right? Hold my hands up and say that. But it's not. It's Manchester United. And it really does feel like, as he said there, he said it's fun to talk about sports. And I think he's genuinely enjoying what he's doing so far. And I'll tell you what, a lot has happened. Let's dive into the full part of this interview because this is where it gets interesting. That's what he said. At Manchester United, we first make the organisation world-class, then success will follow. And this is actually in a bit more detail here. We have to look at the organisation of the club because it is not good at the moment. Take the trainer, for example. He must report, head coach, of course, he must report directly to the CEO. That is no longer possible in a modern football organisation. And Erik ten Hag, just like every manager of Manchester United, post-Fergie, has had to swim upstream as soon as they walked in the front door. Any success that has come has been in spite of Manchester United, not because of it. The club has kind of actively worked sort of against the manager because of the culture that the Glazers instilled, which I will speak about a little bit later in this interview, was in such it was a complete polar opposite to any manager that had ambition of winning at Manchester United. And of course, the CEO, who, of course, the manager used to report to, Ed Woodward, he was a man that Moyes reported to, that Louis van Gaal reported to, that Jose Mourinho reported to. And then Richard Arnold came in, and there was a hope that it might be different, but it wasn't. It was just another shade of shit. And Richard Arnold did the exact same thing. That has already changed with Omar Barada. But as Jim Ratcliffe says right there, you shouldn't really be reporting directly to the CEO. You need someone else. And I'm going to speak about that in a little bit more detail because I want to speak, and that's a little bit later in the interview, because this is what he says next. We then have to ensure that the right people end up in the right positions. Every person in management must be world class. And then it is important to create a positive, supportive, friendly, and high quality environment. That culture was missing before. And this is what we're now going to be able to hear from Jim Ratcliffe because he's got the keys. He doesn't have to bite his tongue anymore about how bad it is at United. Only in such an environment can you get the best out of sportsmen, and probably sportswomen, definitely sportswomen. If successful, the results will follow automatically. That's the plan, and I believe in it. And you go back to what Gary Neville said on more than one occasion. I think this was back in 2018.
Shift the people who are in charge of the club this moment in time back into the business side of the club, back down to London. I think they should put a new football department in charge who are the best in class. The best in class was a phrase that Gary Neville reiterated time and time and time again. And of course, we've got that now in our CEO. And we're going to get it in separate positions. And interestingly, actually, we'll speak about this now. Gary Neville is actually being involved, is going to be involved in the whole regeneration project of not just Old Trafford, but the surrounding area. That Trafford Council regeneration project that was announced, which is going to build 5,000 homes and do all the area around 5 different districts, including the Stadium District, which is Old Trafford and the direct surrounding areas that United are the landowners of, and then Peel, who I think were involved in the creation of Media City, are involved too. Gary Neville is going to be a good voice to lean on there. Obviously, built Hotel Football, and owns another hotel in Manchester, if I'm correct as well.
Salford City, the UA92, which is the education as well. I think Gary Neville's going to be a really good voice to lean on in that sense. Best in class? Maybe, maybe not, but I think he's going to, of course, he'll give a shit about United and he'll want what is best for Manchester and the surrounding areas. And I just think that's a very good idea, all right? It's about getting advice from the right people, and I think that's a good one. But going back to the interview from Jim Ratcliffe here, world class. Every person must be world class. And we move on to the one that we're waiting for now, and Dan Ashworth, all right? And this is a massive one. Because as Jim Ratcliffe says there, look, a manager should not be speaking really to the CEO too often. He should be speaking to the sporting director. And that power chain has never existed at Manchester United, the hierarchy. Who do you look for? You go to Richard Arnold? Oh, he's too busy securing a regional tyre sponsor in Japan to help you with your football problems. Sorry, mate. Dan Ashworth changes that. And in terms of the overall structure and building that, this was a video that I did a while ago, which I'm definitely going to do an update on. It feels pretty accurate. Got Jim Ratcliffe at the top there with Brailsford and Blanc. Barada there, I put Dan Ashworth in. We don't know whether it's going to be Paul Mitchell as the head of recruitment. We still don't know that. The data team over here, Dominic Jordan, is building something really exciting there. I actually reached out to Dominic Jordan. He replied to me on LinkedIn. And he was just like, look, at this moment in time, and probably for the foreseeable future, I'm not going to be speaking to anybody about the data and what we're doing here at Manchester United. So I just wished him the best of luck. And I said, it's good to see that United are sort of coming into the 21st century, because I realise the importance of data. And Man United are starting to as well. But that is best in class. That is creating the conditions for success, because as Jim says, the culture was missing before. And if we go back to what the culture was at Manchester United, again, to lean on what Gary Neville said here about Manchester United almost turning into like a graveyard for players, for managers. It wasn't a place where success shone. It was a place where mediocrity was accepted. Top four, that's our ambition. And so many players have failed in that environment. Now, I think a fair amount of that failure from the players is down to individual. Look inwards. It's not. You can't just blame everybody else. But I don't think the circumstances of Manchester United have been the best in any way, shape or form. And it's all come down from those dirty leeches who just looked at Manchester United to get a bit of a payday. They didn't look at Manchester United because they wanted the institution to be great again. In any way, shape or form. They just had self-serving interest. And therefore, it just, like two rams clashing, butting heads. And that's what Jim Ratcliffe is getting at here. The culture was missing before. Only in such an environment can you get the best out of sportsmen. If successful, the results will follow automatically. That's the plan, and I believe in it. And that's what he has started to do. That photo there is of Jim Ratcliffe meeting all of the staff at Old Trafford. I've run through this before, but it's completely correct. That's him coming out of that meeting. That's him meeting the press at Old Trafford. And that's him going to the Munich Memorial. For the first time in nearly 20 years, we've had an owner of Manchester United be where they should be on the memorial for the Munich air disaster at Old Trafford, paying their respects. And it might not have been a significant factor, but it's all these, to use Dave Brailsford's phrase, marginal gains. When it comes to getting the fans on board, it's these marginal gains. I'm not saying he did this for a marginal gain, right? But it all helps get rid of that culture he said was missing before. The culture that the Glazers brought in. Now, the interesting point there towards the end, and a little bit of a segue from Sir Alex Ferguson, is this last point there, which you might have actually already read whilst I've had it up on screen. Look at this. Is it also the intention to give Fergie a role in the club again? He was asked. He joked. He said, look, I talk to Fergie every now and then. He still has a very interesting view on the matter, and I always listen to it. Sir Alex, I believe, will be sat on the sort of football board. I don't know whether he's going to be... I don't know what the actual setup of the football board is, whether it's going to be something that has voting powers and stuff like that, or whether it's just going to be a collaborative effort at the very top. And they speak to each other. They lean on each other for advice when they need it. And in that sense, I think that's a perfect position to have someone like Sir Alex Ferguson to lean on. Someone like David Gill to lean on. Perfect, in fact. And I think Jim Ratcliffe is probably right to not hold him in that position, but I think Fergie would like to be in that. He'd like to help steer it going forward. And I think he'd be in a very good position to do so. So just running through this is the very first sort of, this isn't a full interview, I suppose, but these are the first words from Jim Ratcliffe that we've had post the announcement of his takeover. This is Jim Ratcliffe now speaking as the owner of Manchester United rather than a prospective owner. He can be more direct. He doesn't have to bite his tongue anymore. That culture, it's not been there before. This is my plan. I believe in it. World-class everywhere. World-class CEO, world-class sporting director, and hopefully a world-class structure in which success can be born. It's exciting. It is very exciting. And they're the first words from Jim Ratcliffe. You can let me know what you think about that in the comments below. I'm looking forward to him doing a proper sit-down with the British press, but these are the first words from him from an interview out with a Belgian business newspaper. There you go. Don't say I don't do some research.